Hey there guys, it's Metro. Today we are back with yet another discussion video about Mythic Plus dungeons, especially specific and interesting keys. And this time we're doing Waycrest Manor. Now, maybe some of the previous videos might have kind of played like a guide. This one is going to be definitely not a guide, all right? I'm going to tell you a little bit about this dungeon where I can, but realistically, we're getting to the point now where I don't really know these dungeons very well, and I'm still learning a lot of them too. And this one is a great example, and this is really why I wanted to do that this week, because this week it is bolstering, and bolstering in here I knew was going to be a problem. And a big problem why is you're going to see going right here, there's just a lot of trash, and it's all going to bolster. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that bolstering is still seemingly yellow mobs can't bolster elites, whatever, red mobs, etc. But they certainly, they certainly try. Let's put it that way. There's going to be a lot of mobs throughout the course of the dungeon. I think, you're going to see a lot of bolstering in this run as well. A lot of poorly played situations. And, right out of the gate, we aggro 2 extra packs while fighting one mob. And basically 2 mobs. One was all the way in the back. Is just casting on us, no threat whatsoever. And then the one mob, the infested, spawn, and we do not deal with them properly. So now we are effectively done. We've just bolstered a very large mob, and it's going to really hurt us. So, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on bolstering. I thought bolstering was going to be a lot harder than it was, to be honest. Really, it's not really held us back too much this week. It's definitely the death of keys if you do it poorly, but it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I guess a big part was I was convinced that there was going to be some new, I don't know, some new trick to it. You know what I mean? Like these yellow mobs would definitely bolster or something like that. Something, because we're seeing these types of mobs in Shrine of the Storm, even this dungeon. Lots of just garbage mobs, just mobs that are just there to make the trash seem pesky, or I don't even know how to describe it. But it's definitely, don't run into that trap, by the way. I did that just so I could show you guys not to do that. I didn't realize that was something that was going to do that. So regardless, don't make that mistake. But the general consensus seems to be going right here is bad. If it's completely random. I believe there's 4 doors total. I'm pretty sure there's 4 doors total that could open. Maybe, I don't know, maybe more. But regardless, there's either left or right. And I actually see Syiler say there in chat, Hunter's Lodge, that is this one that we're here. This is lower right first. And I definitely agree that this is probably the most annoying trash in this little Hunter's Lodge area. And then into these hallways here that we have to pull along the left side by the pig boss. Now, the pig boss room alone has a ton of trash. You're going to see a grievous mistake. I'm talking about one of the worst mistakes you can make in this dungeon, and it's really going to cost us. Now, fair warning, we do not, we failed to upgrade this key by a very small amount, but a big part of why is because a couple big mistakes in this dungeon really hurt us, and I'm talking about like real bad, like a couple minutes each. So, I don't know, just these mobs. The one thing that I can say is, this side is pretty dangerous, honestly. The one thing that really does suck is there's these little worms, kind of look like blood worms. You see them down on the ground there. You just saw them there. They're going to cast an ability called infest or something like that. Infect, might be infect. And if they get that cast off, they're going to put a debuff on the player. Now, part of the weak ore that I have does show you when that debuff, when it expires, it's going to summon ads, kind of like this, kind of like the spawn in Cahoons. But they're just going to, add more time to the dungeon. So you basically want to prevent that from happening. And I believe it's these mobs here. You'll probably see it. That there's that spit mechanic was just damage. And then there it is there. So you see it's just a regular interruptible cast. You don't even really have to stun it. But these mobs will bolster this pig, and this pig patrols into us. So as you see, yet again, wasted time 3, triple bolstered pig, and that adds time to the dungeon. So now this room really is crazy. This is a tough room. Luckily, Infest is not too bad. It could be worse, but where it is bad, we make a big mistake. So regardless, I think in this room, you really want to try to get some time saved, even bolstering. The one thing about bolstering, something that people may not be aware of, and I want to tell you guys about, if everything dies at the same time, it basically doesn't bolster, right? So you really want to try to do that. If you pull like 10 mobs, well, that's not the end of the world. Like if you kill one, and then a second, and then a second, a third, blah, 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 and then you have the 10th mob is like 9 stacks of bolster, then you're done, right? He's going to kill you. But if you kill all 10 of them within like a couple seconds of each other, you know, the final one will have a lot of health and it probably won't die at the exact same time. But like if you could get that to happen exactly that way, like literally the same second, then bolstering is deleted from the dungeon. So, you know, big packs, big mobs are really not that scary. You just have to split your DPS better, and that's difficult to do. I'm not going to say that's easy. Okay, no matter who you are, that's difficult to do. No, it doesn't really matter what class you play. That is not something that you could especially if you're playing a melee, because, you know, melee attacks are going to be such a high amount of your damage that no matter how much AoE you're doing, the target you're meleeing is going to be offset. So you'd have to constantly switch targets, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know. If you're really skilled, you can pull that off. And we, you know, might have been able to pull it off with this mistake we're about to make, but one of the mobs is infested. And that's it. So if you pull an infested large pack on bolstering, just be done. You might as well quit. So we make a huge error. And again, my fault, 100%. Not good. You really don't want to do this. You pull, I think this is 5 mobs. Yeah, 5 mobs. One of them is infested. Yeah, not good. Now, another thing that you're going to see throughout the course of this dungeon, you don't really see it here. Regardless, we do a terrible job with infested there. Just not getting what we need on that, and that is GG. So we're pretty much done now. So this is the big problem. We just double infested a pack after pulling 5 mobs, 4 of which I didn't even need to pull, either. So yeah, now we're in real trouble here, and this is, you know, a big component of to why we failed to upgrade this key. It actually happens again here, and this is why you want to CC infested, guys. Now, this is another thing we should talk about. In the first video I made, in the Ataldazar video I made, I talked about CCing infested a lot, and people were not too happy with that. Let's say people were saying things like, "Oh yeah, you're wasting time CCing. It's not a good idea." You can do it, obviously, but you're just wasting time. It's faster to just kill the mobs. Well, bolstering week, first of all, that is definitely false. Okay, no chance. Because the thing is, my complaint, or my counter argument to that is, if you pull 5 mobs, and one of them's infested, the other 4 are going to heal. So, you know, typically, in a 5-man, you pop CDs pretty frequently, right? So I'm going to potion. You got to pre-pot. This is a big part of it. Pre-pot, and then whatever CDs are up, I'm going to use. Well, guess what? Those CDs are now wasted on mobs that are healing, okay? So I'm doing no AoE damage, effectively. I'm basically doing no AoE damage. And then we kill the mob, and you know what, whatever. Regardless, if we do the infest part right, we do the infest part well, that's great. That's perfect. We did that well, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to do it well. But that one time when you do it wrong, you're done. You just wasted so much time. I'm talking about you're adding almost a minute. You know what I mean? You're adding whatever it takes to kill the second mob that way without CDs to that much longer to the group. So that's not good. So that alone, whatever. Say you do it right 100% of the time, which is never going to happen. But say you do. Say you do it 100% of the time, you do it well. Well, guess what? You still now have 4 mobs to kill, and your CDs are over, right? Your potions ended, almost. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that I'm talking about. People didn't seem to understand this. Like, that's not good. You know what I mean? You should not be in a situation where, you know, you're feeling like, okay, well, I've used all my DPS on a single target. The rest of the mobs are still very healthy, and now we have to finish them. So it's better to do the opposite, in my opinion. It's better to pull 4, CC 1, use your CDs on 4, and then kill 1 without CDs. I think that's faster. I don't think it's an opinion, honestly. But regardless, that is my opinion. So, but definitely with bolstering, you really don't want to mess with this. This is not something you want to deal with on bolster. And luckily, you know, we don't necessarily have to worry about it too much in here because there's not a lot that can be CC'd, not a lot of big bolstering packs in here. But I just wanted to go off on that little side story there because that is very important. I think it's extremely important to deal with infested properly. And that was a big part of why we failed this key. So now, in the chat, actually, Stefaxi actually brought it up. The reason this side sucks, according to him and probably many others, is that it takes so long just to get to the first boss. That means you're wasting a lot of time with Lust. And as you see here, we are, pretty far into the dungeon, and we are just done with 1 boss. So not great. The left side is pretty clear right to the bosses, and I think that's the big difference if you were able to get left every time. Now, something that I guess there's no real conclusive discussion here, but it does seem to be completely random which side opens. I don't think there's any basis. Now, if anybody does know, let me know. But from what I can tell, from very select information, it does not seem to be automatically one thing every time. You won't know until you start the dungeon, right? And now a couple other people reported that it was the same one every week, but that's definitely not happened to me. And regardless, if you could choose, I think we would know about it by now. So I guess it's just entirely random, and it could really change the complexity of the dungeon. So much so that I can imagine this dungeon, even though a lot of people seem to think this dungeon's pretty easy. Now look at oh, hold on. Forget it. Forget what we were talking about. Did you just see what happened? Look at that. Come on, man. This dungeon is so buggy. I'm talking about what the fuck buggy. Like, come on, man. I love Blizzard. I love World of Warcraft, but that's just not acceptable. That mob comes, I'm pretty sure that mob comes through the floor to us. This happens all the time in this courtyard area. Earlier actually in the same stream that I'm getting this footage from, earlier in the stream, we got a matron Alma come through the floor. She didn't even come through the floor. She just aggroed, and she's just doing her mechanics downstairs. It's like, come on, dude. Are you kidding me? So that alone makes me not interested in this dungeon. I don't know how you guys are dealing with it. Let me know what your guys' experience is in this area here. How you're dealing with when mobs aggro through the floor. What first of all, what do you think might cause it? Second of all, is there any way to to get around it? Luckily, I guess we just kind of moved out of the area. In the old days, if something like that happened, like especially like maybe on like a private server or something like that, if that happened, the mob's gonna run all the way up to us. But luckily, in 2018, that doesn't happen. I don't know what to say about that, but that's a good thing. Obviously, that not happening would be that would be a complete wipe, and it would take like 5 minutes for us to wipe too. So we'd be in combat the whole time. The mobs would be running up to us. By the time they get to us, they would just kill us. And we'd have to do it all over again. So not good. But luckily that doesn't happen here. I don't know. Yeah, so really buggy dungeon. And this area here especially is a big part of that. So I'm not really sure what to do. Now this pack here is very, very interesting as well. With bolstering, I don't really know what the options are. These dogs are they have 0 health. They're non-elites, but they are going to bolster her. Now actually, I think I play very well here. I'm glad I showed this off because this boss, or this mini boss, hits extremely hard, especially with 3 stacks of bolstering. But basically, she does a channel, and I can't really discern if it's the melees after the channel or if she does something at the end of the channel. But basically, she casts that, just move out of that, and then this channel is doesn't do very much damage at all. So what I'm doing is I'm generating runic power during this channel, and then as soon as the channel, look at that! Oh my god, that was like 40% of my health in one global. So you just got to be ready. You're going to take a big hit as a death knight, and then you're going to use death strike, and you're going to be healthy again. So I'm trying to build as much. If you can get 2 death strikes out after that, that'd be perfect. But I think I'm playing very well here. As soon as this channel is over, big damage. Just get ready for it. So during the channel, build up runic power, and then big death strikes. If you can get 2 off, you're going to be able to solo the mob. Basically, you're not going to need any healing. And that's one thing that I've been really liking about Blood DK. It feels like the more damage I'm taking, the stronger my death strikes are getting, almost exponentially. It feels like such a higher, in Legion, I felt like so much of the death strike damage or health, healing came from, let's look at that. This boss is so annoying. This fire mechanic is so annoying when you don't have a leap or anything like that. And then that happens if you get too close to the wall, he's going to instantly port you back. That's another weird thing, this expansion, but anyway, the more damage you take, the more death strike is supposed to heal you for. But in Legion, I felt like, I was already healing for so much without it, and that was because the minimum was higher. If you're not aware, they lowered the minimum heal on death strike to 7%. Used to be 10%, and I think they raised the maximum, but actually they might have lowered the maximum too. I can't remember, but regardless, it doesn't really come into play because you're never really gonna. It's never really gonna happen, but. So what I'm doing here is just breaking the boss's mechanic with 10. Usually, people are saying about 10 stacks when you use the fire. Now, I've seen conflicting reports. It does a lot of AOE damage. So it's well, if I could survive his melees and everything, why do it at all? But I guess the Soul of Thorns or the Thorns of Soul, I don't know, whatever it's called. These Soul Thorns, they are dangerous. They also are increased by his damage. I don't know if that's the case. Like I said, kind of getting to the point here where I've only done this dungeon a couple times, so I'm not exactly sure, but. Now this side is not any easier, to be honest. This pack here, does a cleave. You want to make sure other people are not getting hit by the cleave. I learned that earlier. Try to turn these mobs away if you can, but realistically it's difficult in these small hallways. You see people getting hit by this cleave, not ideal. But this mob here, it's got a shield. That casted shield that you're seeing get off constantly. This is really bad. We do not want to let this get off. We want to try to interrupt this at all costs. spirited defensive, whatever that is. We want to try to prevent that. But it can be spell stolen. It can be purged. It can be dispelled by a priest, etc. So you can do that. That's great. You definitely want to. But ideally, you would just interrupt it. We have multiple interrupts as a Death Knight. So keep your eye on that. And again, try not to get other people cleaved. I'm not doing a great job of that, but luckily the people are far enough away that they're not getting hit by the cleave. So yeah, this trash is really, it's less voluminous. So especially on bolstering, it's a bit easier. It's a bit quicker. But if you came left first and you had to deal with this trash instead, it's really not going to change anything there. So I don't know. That path does not come out as far as I thought it did. But regardless, one of it's infested. Again, even 2 mobs, I think we really should be CCing. But so back to that. Back to that. So the problem with CCing, okay, this is the problem. People don't take it upon themselves to CC, and it makes me really want to play a Demon Hunter, because Demon Hunter would be able to CC. I'm pretty sure. I don't know exactly what their CCs are able to be used on, but I'm pretty sure they could CC humanoids. So that would be very useful. You know what I mean? Being able to CC, and Monk could do the same. You know what I mean? Paralyze isn't the best CC, but it doesn't need to be. All it needs to do is keep the mobs 8 yards away for infest, right? So being a tank, and even Druid. You know, Druid could root. What else? Warrior can't do anything. Paladin could repentance. I'm pretty sure repentance will work on most of this stuff too. So these things are really valuable. You know what I mean? This is one thing about Death Knight. We don't have a CC. So, you know, infest is not going to be here for the entire expansion. And I am going to miss it, honestly. I really, really, really like infest. But the reason I really like it is something that nobody interacts with, and that's, you know, actually CCing the mobs. Nobody ever does it. I'm always, even as a slow Blood Death Knight, I feel like I'm always first to the pack, which is what you're supposed to be doing as a tank, by the way. Don't get it twisted. I should be first to the pack. It's not a knock on the damage dealers. That's what you should be doing as a tank. You should be elevating the pace of the dungeon above all else. Literally, that is your job now. Threat is non-factorial most weeks, even with Skittish, as you see. We have nothing to discuss. They never pull threat on me. And health, you know, for the most part, unless you're playing very poorly or you're really under-geared, your job is not really to survive any more than 5-mans. It's to maximize your pace, maximize your offense, maximize your defense when needed. That is your job. And as a Blood Death Knight, nobody is better at that than your class. So you really got to be playing exceptional, especially with mobility involved, because it's your one weakness. So it's like, I feel like, you know, the pace of the dungeon is just dramatically slowed. It's like I'm sitting here marking mobs, trying to convince people to CC, and they don't want to do it. You know, even, you know, the guy in the group mage and the rogue, these are people I know. These are friends of mine. Now, I get too close and aggro the boss. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I pot out of combat, and I think I'm out of combat, but I don't, you know, I pot in combat. So that's terrible. Wasted big amount of DPS. Don't aggro mobs when you don't want to. Always pot before combat. If I could say one thing in this video, don't pot in combat, especially in a boss. But yeah, we're going to lust here. I'm really glad I showed this. We're going to lust on the second ad. And the second ad is commonly considered the most dangerous. But the real reason, I think, is the first ad mind controls somebody. The mind control, obviously, person is not going to benefit from lust. And we have to kill them instead of it. So yeah, that's not good. When that mob mind controls somebody, they're immune again. And you have to kill the mind control. A big tip for those out there playing people with immunity, I guess especially mage, you really want to use your immunity beforehand. I guess people have had it. I haven't seen this myself, but I guess people have seen a situation where somebody who uses an immunity goes immune while they're mind controlled, and for some reason the mob picks a new mind control. So then there's 2 people mind controlled and one of them's immune. But regardless, even if that didn't happen, that's a bug, surely. Even if it gets fixed, you don't really want the target that you're attacking to be immune. I think we agree, right? So that's not a good thing. But this boss is really dangerous on Tyrannical. I think it's one of the harder bosses in the game. Luckily, on 4-die-5, it's not really a problem at all. You just kind of kill him. And this is actually a great fight for us with Bolstering, because you can actually get free healing. Now, here we go. Another mistake made. This is something I want to talk about earlier in the dungeon. But again, if we just CC'd, the pack would be a lot quicker. So, watch what happens here. The priest mind-controlled that mob. Now, this is something we did earlier in the stream to great effect. Disciplined priest, mind-controlling the mob. And what you really want to be doing is mind-controlling them when they're about to die, so they don't get bolstering. If the mob is bolstered, it can't, or if the mob is mind-controlled, it can't be bolstered. Now, it can't be mind-controlled if it is bolstered. But instead, what he does is he mind-controls the infested mob. Now, I would not recommend that. Instead, you know, it doesn't matter. We put ourselves in a bad position. There's no real way to around that. You should probably have CC'd this. But from here on out, we got to really focus on some of these things, you know? So what he did was he mind controlled it and then moved it away. That's not a bad idea, to be honest. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad save. Okay, so here we go. This is where we fail the key. I come down here and pull a mob that looks like it's alone, and I get the Matron Alma mob, and that's it. We're done. We're done. We're not going to be able to kill this. I'm stuck against a wall. For some reason, I can't leave the door, get to the healer, or we're done. So we wipe. My fault. I have to, you know, take credit for that wipe. I don't really see how it's not my fault, but regardless, I don't really understand. And now, another thing that's on my mind right now, again, you've seen in the chat, we're talking about count before we go down. I'm worried that we have count. Now, apparently, you need 83% before you go down properly. So we're going down into, I guess, what you consider the cellar. I don't know exactly, but if there's like down and then there's real down. You know what I mean? Like Logan down, you know, from Westworld. So you don't really need to worry about count as much as I thought you did. I thought you might want to get more up here. But yeah, 83% before you go down to the bosses out of this room. Now, again, where is Matron Alma? I don't know. But she aggroes again. Or does she not? No, that's not here. Yeah, that's on the other side of the room. So I don't know. This is a really problematic room. I don't see the mob. It's so difficult to see down here. It's such a small area. I feel like if I walked properly in, I would aggro stuff anyway. So I don't know. Where is she? She's nowhere near us. Right? I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out myself. I don't know. I just don't see it. I literally don't see her. I guess maybe she was with the group. Honestly, I need to like slow it down and watch my own video. But this wipes this, and this is the death of the key right here. 100%. You see the priest is about to start freaking out. I don't know what to tell you. I just don't see it. I'm not doing it on purpose, and I don't know. So this is very interesting. You know, obviously you want to not make this mistake. And I'm not really sure how I made it, to be honest. Even watching it again, I can't really figure out what I did wrong. I've seen it a couple times now, and I just don't see the mob. Yet all of a sudden it's there. I guess it was probably just standing with the pack. No, there's only 3 mobs. The matron's all the way down there. So I don't know. I would typically have just pulled this out, but the problem is, I don't know. There's not a lot of room to fight down here. So yeah, obviously we're wasting even more time trying to talk about what we do. I don't know. But they want to pull Matron. Now watch this. So we're going to CC these 2 mobs to pull Matron, and we're still going to aggro one of those mobs. So yeah, bolstering is going to be a problem. This is another one of those, you know, those dangerous mobs that we talked about upstairs. They do the cleave, they do the shield mechanic, spirited defense, whatever that is. You want to prevent that. Luckily, they don't put it on Matron. That would be terrible, but yeah, I don't know. This room is a nightmare. I feel like I really dislike it. I would rather come from the other direction. The other direction is way easier. Okay, so again, the randomness of this dungeon can really show. I feel like the other way is way easier because you can see. You can actually walk into the room before you pull 3 things. You know what I mean? You could actually use your eyeballs to see the mobs. I could not see her. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Making a lot of excuses here, I feel like. But this is, you know, I'm trying to figure this out as I go, and it's not really working. I'm talking about in the recording and again now. So, yeah, still infested mob back there, so that's not ideal. But regardless, bolstering is about to get hurt me really bad. The one thing about bolstering is, we're talking about this as well. Apparently, it used to be a 40-yard range. First of all, I don't actually know how anybody knows this. They said it's on the tooltip. It is not, at least when I checked. But yeah, you see, we bolstered this mob 3 times. So even though it was CC'd, we are not far enough away from it. So it's still bolstering as we kill the other mobs. And that's not good. You know what I mean? You don't want to have this mob start with this much health. So ideally, you'd CC and then move the mobs very far. But this is something you never dealt with in Legion. There was no CCing for bolstering. Nobody gave a shit. You know what I mean? The bosses were what was hard, as long as you don't bolster the boss. By the way, you can bolster a boss. If you pull trash with the boss, not trash that might be considered trash that comes from the boss, like things that the boss spawns, that's not going to bolster the mob. But if you pull, so for example, these 3 mobs with the boss up ahead, then it would bolster the boss. Now here, yet again, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? But yeah, we CC 1 and pull these 2. We don't really need to do that. I'm thinking about CCing the infested mob, but you can't actually do that. And it's just all messy. I'm playing terrible. I'm happy to show this off because this is not good. This is embarrassing. honestly. I'm embarrassed watching myself do some of this stuff. And this really is where we're at with these dungeons. I've done Freehold, Motherlode, a Tall Dazar, and yeah, I mean, I guess this one I've done a couple times now, but I've done some of these dungeons like 50 times, and then I've done the other five times. Like literally. It's so different, like in terms of how often I've done them. But anyway, this mob here is infested. It does that candle mechanic. You're going to see these black runes on the ground. You can see them under the frozen orb there. They reduce the damage the mobs standing in them take by, I think, 15%. So you do not want to let the mob stand in it. You can't prevent the cast, from what I can tell, in any way. So just move the mobs out after it. Luckily, you know, weak ores and other, you know, icon stuff will be it'll be easy to see. Now there you go again. The mind control breaks. The mob is mind control. The mind control so it wouldn't get bolstering. So that's nice. It's still going to get 2 stacks of bolstering, but something to be aware of if your discipline priest is doing this, they have an insane threshold. I'm talking about, like, there's been times the guy mind controls and the mob I taunt and it still goes back to him after taunt's over. So that's a lot of threat. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be real ready. Anyway, the rest of this dungeon is pretty straightforward. We're going to be over count. This boss here doesn't really pose any challenges. Just move out. That mechanic can be dispelled, and when it drops a circular, like kind of like a swirl. If you stand in the swirl, it'll happen. You'll have the mechanic again, but obviously you want to kind of move the swirl out. If that the spell hits another person, then they'll get it as well. It's kind of like in a Taldazar, the trash leading up to the first boss there. If it's dispelled on top of another person, then the dispel has to be done a second time, and more people have the mechanic, which is not good. So, I don't know, just dodge these blue swirls. Don't get hit by the green circle or the green swirl. And, I don't know, probably save CDs for the final part, especially as a tank. You know, Bone Storm would have been nice to have for the second part. Obviously, anytime you get hit Bone Storm. So, that's another thing. Might as well talk about that. Bone Storm is now apparently, like, actually good single target. I don't know. Again, I don't know when. It's probably been the case the whole time. I just never really tried it. But I guess it's worth using on single target. I'm looking at all the parses and raids, and even like literally pure single target fights never hit 2 targets with Bone Storm, and they're still using it. I guess the thing is, you know, Red Thirst does not do anything for damage, but Bone Storm actually does a fair amount of healing. Like, I do think Bone Storm does more healing than Death Strike, even, you know, when you're on a single mob. So that's good. And obviously a pack like this, it's a no-brainer. You got to use it, but I don't know. Now, this pack's actually pretty tough. Now, I've seen a lot of people skip this part. Usually they have, I guess, more count depending on the route. I've seen a lot of people skip this part. So if you're doing well with count and you get to this point, you can invis pot, you could death run. I've seen a lot of people death run, just run through them and die, and somebody battle reses, whatever. That's fine. It's a very easy death run. There's a lot of hard death runs that people have executed. Tried, especially in Motherlode, some of these other dungeons, but you know, you can just pull this off easily. There's like, it's like 40 yards that you'd have to run. You know what I mean? It's not going to be very difficult to get by them. But as you see, we're now over count, and they're like, we should shroud. The guy's thinking like, if we killed the boss with a minute 30, we'd make it. I don't think that's realistic, but I guess it's possible. So yeah, being over count, you know, you don't want to do that. I don't really know what we pulled extra. I don't think the answer is anything. You're just, I don't know. We probably should have pulled more early. Actually, we did definitely pull extra stuff. That Hunter's Lodge, we pulled an extra pack there. Really two, I think. I don't know, though. It's hard to remember at this point. It's such a freaking wild ride, this dungeon, man. This last boss is pretty straightforward. I mean, especially on Fortified, he's going to be a joke. These ads that come out, you really want to kill them quick. You know, if they're causing problems for you. I think they stun a player. Pretty sure they stun. It can be gripped. You could prevent it with grip. They jump, though, so it's a problem. Sometimes you grip and they just jump again. It's kind of a pain in the ass. But it can be done. I know that much. So, I don't know. This fight dies real quick. I don't think it dies in a minute like this priest was thinking. But especially... So, you kill the mob and then you burn it before he does his cast. When he does his cast, he's going to raise... any dead mobs that are still there. So, you really want to burn them. Look at how much damage this disc priest is doing, though, by the way. Shadow Word Pain is like overpowered now all of a sudden, apparently. So I don't know. Anyway, that was Waycrest 13. Not a dungeon I'm very familiar with, but one that I'm glad we had some good discussion points on. And it was fun to discuss. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about it. If you guys have a lot more experience with this dungeon, then you could help us, help me help others. Give a good comment, something about, you know, where You saw we could have changed, made some decisions, maybe even suggestions, anything like that to improve the time. So anyway, thanks for watching. Waycrest 13. 13s are kind of falling out of the sky now, so more higher keys coming up. But thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.